Hello, this is Kaylee with Form Filling Fairies. Today I am going to tell you how to fill out the I-90 application if you need to replace your permanent resident card, your green card. First things first, you can always go to uscis.gov or you can look up like I-90 on Google, or you can also just type in application to replace permanent resident card or green card if you forget the name of the application. But here I'm going to show you the steps of what you need to do in order to replace your green card. So first, you are going to go down here onto this is the USCIS page. There's a couple notes on this paper, but one of them says you need to check the tool if you want to see if you're eligible to become a U.S. citizen. So if you are interested in that, go ahead and click that. If you'd rather just be a resident, you can also keep doing the residency. But you can use this tool if you want to check if you are eligible to become a citizen. You're going to go down here. There's always this little warning sign. It says, do not submit this form if you are a conditional resident seeking to remove conditions on your green card. So if you are conditional, that is a different process. Conditional then would mean adjustment of status before you can get your official green card without conditions. So this is only if you are an official permanent resident. So you're going to go down here to Forms and Document Downloads, and you're going to click on Form I-90. There's also instructions here. There's just a lot of words sometimes, which is why I prefer to make these videos for y'all to be able to use as a reference. But you can use these instructions as well or have them printed out as you kind of are going through the application to guide you. So we're going to click on Form I-90. What's nice about the USCIS website, they're always going to give you the most updated version, the version that is accepted. This one up here expires in 2027. But again, like always just check the page in case there is a newer edition that's available. So if you are going to fill this out on the computer, obviously you're just going to type it in, right? As many things as you can. Some things will have to be on paper when you print it out. But here, for the purpose of this, I'm also going to let you know that you can also print this and write in black ink. So you could honestly do the whole application on paper if you'd rather, or you can go ahead and type it on here. But it's pretty straightforward. This first part, information about you, you're going to put your A number, which has been following you since you've had a case with USCIS. And then number 2 is if you use an online account number with USCIS, they usually give you these numbers on your I-797C receipt of notice. But again, if you don't use it or don't really know, you can also just put NA here. Down here, you're going to put the name that you want your card to be issued in. Now, I will say this. If your name hasn't changed at all, you're just going to put that same stuff here, right? If you've gotten married or divorced or just different things, right? You're going to put what name you want to come on your new green card, okay? So, it's last name, first name, middle name, right? If you have 2 last names, they would both go in this one. Here it's saying, number 4, has your name legally changed since the issuance of your permanent resident card? So if you're putting a new name on what your previous card, your previous application was, you would put yes, right? And then you'd put no if not. And then NA is if you've never received your previous card. This is if it gets lost in the mail, which unfortunately I know if that happens, it's not fun and you have to, do the whole application again and pay the fee. But again, if you never had your card, you're going to put never received my card. If your name has legally changed, they want you to go to 5A through 5C. If not, you would skip this next part. So this says provide your name exactly as it is printed on your current permanent resident card. So this is what your original permanent resident card would have. Now it says here too, it says attach all evidence of your legal name change with this application. So if you have gotten married, have gotten divorced, changed your name on your passport, whatever it is that shows a legal change of name, you're going to attach that to this application. That way they can guarantee that you are who you say you are and they're able to legally change your name on your permanent resident card. Up here, this is where you would go if you're not changing your name. You would go to the mailing address. So here you would put who is going to be sending or receiving the mail, and you would put in care of name. So this could be your name, the person who's receiving it, and then you're going to put their information. So again, street number, name, pretty straightforward, right? If you live in an apartment or don't, but here you would check that off, write the number, city or town, state, zip code. 6G and 6H, I usually just leave blank unless, they're living in a different place, which isn't likely if they're here in the United States requesting a permanent residency card since they have to meet those residency requirements. And then 6I, obviously I would put the country. This part, physical address. So if your mailing address is different from your physical address, then yes, you would fill this part out. If it's the same, you can honestly just fill up this part up here and leave this blank, because here they're saying provide this only if it is different from the mailing address. So you could also just put NA here if it's the same one, if it's a different address that you're physically living at versus like a PO box or something else that's your mailing address. Yeah, that's when you would do it. So we'll go back down. So you'd fill that out if it's different. Now we have additional information about you. This is stuff that they probably already have in the system, but they just want you to confirm your identity. So sex, male, female, your date of birth. Remember that some countries will put the days before the month, so just make sure that you're putting it in the order of month, date, year. City, town, village of birth, and country of birth. Number 12 and 13 are just your mother and father's first name. No last names required, just their first name. 14, class of admission. So how were you admitted to the United States? 15 is the date of admission. And then 16 is your social security number if you have one, which you probably do since you've probably gone through, the work permit process where they give you one. So you're going to put those numbers in here as well. Now, this part says, if your conditional permanent resident status is expiring within the next 90 days, then do not file this application. So do not file this application because you're going to be doing a different process, okay? So this is where you're going to check off what your status is. So lawful permanent resident, you're going to go to Section A. Permanent resident in commuter status, also Section A. And then conditional permanent resident, you would go to Section B and leave Section A blank. So if we are going to pick one of these, for example, lawful permanent resident, we're going to go up here. And it's going to tell us the different options that we are applying for this green card to be reprinted, to be reissued for us. So it says to only be used by a lawful permanent resident or a permanent resident in commuter status. So again, reminding us that Section A is only for those two categories. And they want you to select only one box. So you would go through this list and find the one that, makes the most sense for you. If you truly you had your card, it was lost, stolen, or destroyed, you'd pick 2A. If it was never received, if it got lost in the mail and USCIS never received it back, you would then pick 2B. And just kind of go through the list and see. There's some also that mention about 14th birthday, if you're younger. And let's see which other ones. If you are taking up the commuter status, you would also fill out 2H1A. So this one is actually 2. You check the box and you would write the port of entry that you go into the United States, so the city or the state. And I think that's all of those for these ones. Okay, so yes, so Section A is only this page here. So again, if you are a conditional permanent resident and your application is not expiring within the next 90 days, you're going to file this one. So not expiring. So Part 2, Section B, this says to be only used by a conditional permanent resident. So again, you're going to pick your reason, which there's less for this one, but you would pick your reason as to why you are requesting a replacement card. Part 3, everybody fills this one out. So this is location where you applied for your immigrant visa or adjustment of status, and then location where your immigrant visa was issued or the office where you were granted adjustment of status. 3A. Okay, so these say if you entered the United States with an immigrant visa, you would fill this out. Okay, it says if you were granted adjustment of status, you can just go ahead and go to item number 4. So here you would put the destination, the port of entry, and then they ask, have you ever been in exclusion, deportation, or removal proceedings, or ordered removed from the United States? Yes or no. And since you were granted permanent residence, have you ever filed Form I-407, which is your abandonment of your case? Yes or no. And then here it says, no, if you answered yes to items number 4 or 5 above, provide a detailed explanation in the space provided in Part 8, which is the last page, which allows you to put additional information if required. So we'll come back to that. I'll show you in a moment. Here's your biographic information that you've been filling out from the get-go with USCIS, which you're going to put your ethnicity, select only one box. Race, you can select all applicable boxes. Number 8 is your height. This would be feet in inches. Weight in pounds, you would fill those in as well. Eye color, select only one box. Hair color, select only one box. They should have all the options. And then Part 4 is if you have any disabilities or impairments. So first let me go back. It says if you need extra space to complete the section, you can also use the additional information page in Part 8. But number 1 says, are you requesting an accommodation because of your disability and or impairments? Yes and no. If you put no, you're just going to skip all the way down to the next part. You're not going to answer anything in part 4. But if you put yes, you're going to go ahead and check any of the applicable losses that are what you qualify for. So if you're deaf or hard of hearing, you would select this one. If you are blind or have low vision and request the following accommodation, you would check this one. Or if you have any other type of disability and or impairment, describe the nature of your disability and or the impairment and the accommodation you are requesting. So you would put the information if you are for one of these. I don't think on the computer it lets you type unless you have a different kind of app that allows you to do that on your computer. But if not, you would just check off the box and you could write it physically on the paper with black ink. Whatever your explanation is or your reason is or your accommodation is that you want to share with USCIS. And if you need more more space, you would go on to additional information in Part 8. All right, that was pretty much the majority of this. So now Part 5 is just your statement, your contact information, your certification, and your signature. So it says read the penalty section of the form I-90 instructions before completing this part. They just make sure that you want to, say the truth. Everything is the truth, correct to your knowledge. Nothing on this paper is something that you're lying about or trying to hide from them. They just want transparency. So there's going to be a page if you go to the instructions part, which I can also show you in a moment, just to kind of go over what are the consequences before you complete this part and do it correctly. So applicant statement. It says select the box for either item number 1A or 1B. If applicable, select the box item number for item number 2. So 1A is I can read and understand English, and I have read and understand every question and instruction on this application and my answer to every question. If you're doing this by yourself, 1A, right? No interpreter needed. 1B, if you are using an interpreter, you would check this box, and you're going to not put their name, but you're going to write the language in which they're interpreting. So if you speak Spanish and that's your native language, and you needed to have something interpreted for you in order to understand the question and your answer, you would write Spanish or whatever language it is in this box. Again, probably on paper in black ink because it doesn't allow me on the computer to do it here. But again, there are apps for that if you need. And so it's either one of these ones, right? 1A or 1B. And then number 2 is if you use somebody to prepare this application. Now, if it was a lawyer, a preparer, even a family friend, right? You can put their name on here. So you put at my request, the preparer named in Part 7, and here you would write their name, prepare this application for me based upon only information I provided or authorized, and you would check the box. All right. This part is your phone number, daytime phone number, if you have a mobile phone number that's different from your daytime one, and if you have an email address. And then this is your certification. This is you're swearing in, so to speak. You're approving of what's in this application and the documents attached. It says copies of any documents I have submitted are exact photocopies of unaltered original documents, and I understand that USCIS may require that I submit the original documents to them at a later date. They're authorizing the release of any information from the records to determine their eligibility. It also says, let's kind of go through. I'm kind of skimming this, but you also can read through it yourself if you want to make sure you understand exactly what they're saying. And it says, I understand that USCIS will require me to appear for an appointment to take my biometrics, fingerprints, your picture, your signature. And at that time, you're going to sign the oath, right? I reviewed and provided or authorized all of the information in my application. I understood all of the information contained in and submitted with my application, and all of the information was complete, true, and correct at the time of filing. I certify under penalty of perjury that I provided or authorized all of the information in my application. I understand all of the information contained in and submitted with my application, and that all of this information is complete, true, and correct. So if all that's true, everything looks good, you would go ahead and sign here, and you do need to sign in ink, black ink. And you would write the date of your signature. Says, note to all applicants, if you do not fill this application out or fail to submit required documents in the instructions, USCIS may deny your application. So just keep an eye on that. Make sure everything is complete, everything is all together. Here is if you use an interpreter, they would put their information here, kind of the same structure as your section, except here they are putting their mailing address, and they're also putting in their contact information. Here, the interpreter would certify that they are fluent in both languages. Here, it does let you write the language in. For some reason, this one does. So if it was Spanish, the person would write Spanish in here. And they're certifying under penalty of perjury as well that they are fluent in both, read every application question and answer to the applicant, So yes, including even the certification. So everything has been read to you in your native language. They're certifying that. And then up here, the interpreter would sign in ink and then also date their signature. And 7 is for the person that prepared your application if it's not the applicant. So even if it's, a family friend, a preparer that you're paying to do it for you, a lawyer, this is where they would fill that out. So same thing, their information, their address, their contact information, and then here they're going to check off if they are an attorney or if they're not an attorney. So if it's a family friend that's not a lawyer, not an attorney, they would check off this box saying that they have prepared the application on behalf of the applicant and with the applicant's consent. If it's a lawyer, they're going to know what to do, but they would fill out this part here. They would check off one of these boxes, and regardless of who filled it out, they need to sign in ink and then also date the signature. So that's literally the majority of the application. The last page, like I was saying, is the additional information space. So if you need to explain yourself with any of those questions from above, or the ones that literally say, explain in part A if you needed, you would fill this part out. Regardless though, even if you're not going to be explaining anything extra, you're always going to put your information here. Your last name, your first name, your middle name, and your A number. If you are going to just kind of leave it at that and don't need any extra information, you could just put NA in these categories showing that you reviewed this page, but there's no extra information that's needed at the time. But if you do want to fill something out about a specific page, I'm just going to make one up, but we're going to put page 2, part 1, item 3C. So with this one, if we're going to talk about the legal name change, let's just pretend that that's what this one is about. You would write here, I got married in 2025 to, maybe write the name here, and then you can say, and legally changed my name in whatever date that was. See attached marriage certificate and updated legal name change in evidence. So this is where you would then be attaching those documents. And when I say attached, don't necessarily staple them because sometimes they do not want things stapled, but you're adding it to this application. So this is an example of something that you would include if it came to that. And that's all. So there's 7 pages, so 7 of 7. So you want to always make sure that you have all 7 filled out, signed in order before you submit your application, along with the evidence that is required for this application. Okay, so we'll go to the top. So this is your application. Again, we're not filling out the top part. This is for USCIS only, which it says right up here. Part 1 and beyond is all yours to fill out. And the next part is the instructions for Form I-90 that I was telling you about, that it is referred to within the application to kind of check out the evidence. There's also a notice of just that what you're saying in your application and in your supporting evidence is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. So I'm going to click on this, but I also have a separate little page to kind of show you the evidence breakdown because this is a little bit long. But if you go through this, it tells you again who qualifies for this I-90 application, the filing fee, which I will show you in a moment as well, how much the total cost is, and then signature, that you must properly complete your application. You need to have that signature. They will not accept a stamped or a typewritten name instead of having a signature, so make sure you are physically signing it with a black pen. The evidence, again, it says the evidence is listed in the specific instruction sections of these instructions. So again, it's kind of repetitive, but you're going to see what I'm about to show you. Copies here, so make sure everything is legible, that they can read it, that it is a certified copy if needed. Do not submit original documents unless they request it, because it says here, note, they might destroy them after we receive them. They don't need your originals, they just need certified copies of certain documents, and then translations also when required if the original document is in a different language. The certifications for those is literally just a paper that says, my name is whatever the interpreter's name is. I am competent in both English and whatever the native language is. They sign it. They put their information, their phone number, and the date that they did the translation. So make sure your translations include that extra page. If you go on Google, you can type in certified translation PDF. There should be a couple that come up. You can go ahead and print one out if you don't want to make it on your own. All right, how to complete the Form I-90. This goes through all of it again. Everything that we talked about today goes through it. If you need more clarification on something, you would go through here. And like that thing above said, the evidence, you will see the evidence kind of pop up, throughout this instructions form. So if we go to, let's find one so I can just kind of show you what it looks like when you see the evidence. Let's see. All right, here, for example, it's kind of just scattered, but it says select the reason if your card was lost, stolen, or destroyed. Here it says submit a copy of your permanent resident card if you have one, or a form of ID from a government that includes your name, birthday, picture, and signature. This could be a passport, a driver's license, something that identifies you from your previous country or from even the United States, right? But just an official document. So again, throughout this whole thing, you're going to see a list of those documents, which I will be showing you in a moment in a different form. But let's go down a little bit further. All right, the part that they talk about in the application is the penalties. So I'm just going to read this out loud, just make sure we're all on the same page. But it says, if you knowingly and willfully falsify or conceal a material fact or submit false documentation with your Form I-90, we will deny your Form I-90, we will deny your application, and we may deny you of any other immigration benefit. In addition, you will face severe penalties provided by law and may be subject to criminal prosecution. So just avoid it. Just submit what they're asking. No need to hide anything. It's better to always tell the truth with USCIS. So yes, everything should be submitted correctly and true to the best of your knowledge, right? There's really not much. This is pretty straightforward, but I'm just going to go to what I made here. So this is just kind of like the evidence that I just put together in a little slideshow just to show you what you need based on your different circumstances. So first things first, everybody should submit this with their I-90, a copy of your previous green card permanent residency card, the front and back. You should have a picture of it that you've taken at some point, but if not, you can also do a copy of your passport or driver's license if you do not have your green card or you never received it. Okay, but they would rather, I think, prefer to have the green card, but again, other options are also available to you. You also need to submit with your application the I-797C copy of notice of action if you have it, showing proof of permanent residence. Usually this says we received your application or your residency has been approved. They need to show proof that you have been, in proceedings with USCIS to get your residency. Or you can also have a copy of the I-551 stamp in your passport if you entered the country as a resident. Now, if you have had a legal name change since the time of your original application, this is where you would put that information. It's either a marriage, divorce, adoption, a court order. Maybe there could be like a personal legal name change, but these are the most common. Again, though, you need to include this with your application. And if it's in another language, you need that certified translation. Okay. If you have that legal name change, remember to show the proof of what your name was before and then show the proof of your name now. So you will be submitting that. Now, if the Department of Homeland Security made the error on your current green card, this is kind of where you're going to put similar things. But again, your birth certificate, marriage certificate, divorce decree, adoption decree, just to show proof of who you are. Even if your name hasn't changed, they made the mistake, you're still going to submit this documents to show your true name. And let's go back to here. Okay, couple more things. So first of all, filing fee. How much is it? Okay, we have a separate video that shows you how to pay the amount because there's no more money orders or cashier's checks or personal checks, but I'm going to show you the fee schedule. So what's nice about this is if you click on it from the I-90 page, it takes you straight to the amount, right? You can actually go through this whole list and see all of USCIS's fees, but this one is specifically for the replacement of the permanent residency card. So for paper, it's $465. For online, it's $415. But that's the general filing. Now, there's certain circumstances where you're not going to pay anything, which are these three below. So the three below say if you have reached your 14th birthday and your existing card will expire after your 16th birthday, it's $0. If you are filing because we issued your previous card but you never received it and it was returned as undeliverable to USCIS, $0. This is different from getting lost in the mail, right? If they get the card back for whatever reason, that's different. That's $0. But if they sent it to you and you never received it and they never received it, you are going to have to pay the filing fee, which is unfortunate, but that's just, part of the situation. And then this last one is if you are filing because we issued the card with incorrect information because of a Department of Homeland Security error, again, $0. There is a fee waiver thing here. I do not have a video about this yet. But this is pretty long and in-depth. But if you truly cannot pay it and have proof of that, or have proof of whatever struggle you're going through, you would fill out this form. But we're going to come back to where I was. You can also file online here. So you can create an account with USCIS if you'd rather do it on the computer. I personally like to print it just to have all my paperwork together, organize it, and then send it off. And it usually gets to them within a couple days using USPS priority mail. But we're going to go back to the I-90 page. Here it's just an easy tool, but where to file. So telling us where are we going to file it. Obviously, we have the online version. We also have by paper. What's nice about this is it's not based on where you're living state-wise, because sometimes there's a very long list. It says only certain states would mail it to a certain address. This one is pretty straightforward. If you're mailing it through USPS, this is the address that you would be putting in. It's going to Phoenix, Arizona. You would write USCIS, attention, I-90, etc. Write the P.O. box. And then here is the address for FedEx, UPS, and DHL deliveries. Again, though, when you go to do this on your own, make sure you always check the USCIS.gov website in case this changes by the time you're watching this video, right? And I think that's about it. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we would be happy to help you. Have a good rest of your day.